Welcome to today's video. My name is James Driscoll. Today I'll be going over the 7 habits of highly effective people. So I picked up this book a good few months ago and I had a great read through it. It's about only 10 minutes long. I like when they make the miniature versions like this. And I want to divulge to you the 7 habits that are hidden inside. So if you don't have this book, you can learn straight from this video. Let's start. Now, before we get into the actual 7 habits that are inside this book, we need to first define habits. What are they? Habits are the knowledge, the what to, the why to, the skills, the how to, and the desire, the want to, all mixed together. That's what defines a habit. So for example, making this video, I have the skills, I know how to video edit, I know how to measure the audio, I know how to upload the video. I have the knowledge, also similar to the skills. I learned it from the internet, I learned it from books, I learned how to do this through practice. And the desire, I want to upload this video because I believe it's going to help people. I believe it's going to get views. I believe it's going to get traction. And that all makes the habit. So, it states, the 7 habits are habits of effectiveness. Because they are based on principles, they make the maximum long-term beneficial results possible. Become the basis of a person's character, creating an empowering center of correct maps from which an individual can effectively solve problems, maximize opportunities, and continually learn and integrate other principles in an upward spiral of growth. So in the book, it talks about the PPC balance. What is the PPC balance? So P is the production, and we can learn this through Aesop's fable of the goose and the golden egg. So P is production, and production means the eggs. And PC means production capability, which is the health and welfare of the goose. So these correlate with each other, they're yin and yang. You need to protect the welfare and the health of the goose so that in the long term, it's able to produce more eggs. So, the first habit is taking initiative. Our basic nature is to act and to not be acted upon. As well as enabling us to choose our response to particular circumstances, this empowers us to create circumstances. So taking initiative does not mean being pushy, obnoxious, or aggressive. It does mean recognizing our responsibilities to make the things happen. So if I want to grow this YouTube channel, for example, I need to make videos, whether I like it or not. That's me taking initiative. That's me putting a step in the right direction, so all those steps build up and to create a marathon. You get my point. So it takes initiative to create the PPC balance of effectiveness in your life. It takes the initiative to develop the 7 habits. As you study the other 6 habits, you will see that each depends on the development of your proactive muscles. Each puts the responsibility on you to act. We are responsible for our own effectiveness, for our own happiness, and ultimately, I would say, for most of our circumstances. And this part is funny, I like this part. Knowing that we are responsible, and then puts in quotation marks, response able. So that's very interesting. So we're able to respond, we're able to act, is fundamental to effectiveness and to every other habit of effectiveness that we will discuss. So, next one, begin with the end in mind. So the most fundamental application of begin with the end in mind is to begin with the image, picture, or paradigm of the end of your life as a frame of reference of the criteria by which everything else is examined. So I'm a really big supporter of this man called David Goggins. He's an ultra marathoner, he's an ultra endurance athlete, he's an author and all around amazing person. And I remember, because I've read both of his 2 books that he's published, and I remember he said that visualization was a massive part of his life to achieving his goals. When he went through Navy SEAL training 3 times, each time when he was trying to attempt to graduate, he would visualize very clearly in his mind standing on stage and accepting the award. And ultimately, that's what he believes, of course, as well as grit and determination, all these other aspects. But the visualization is concrete, and that helped him to actually end up staying on that stage, graduating at the very end of Buds. which was the training school for the Navy SEAL team. So he said it didn't matter, even if it was just for that 1 second of celebration, it was worth it. And I find that pretty incredible. And I think about that sometimes. So each day of your life, you need to make sure it contributes in a meaningful way to the vision that you have as your life as a whole. I think that's just a great philosophy to have. So, number 3, a personal mission statement. In developing your own self-awareness, many of us discover ineffective scripts, deeply embedded habits that are totally unworthy of us, totally incongruent, I messed up, with the things we really value in life. So of course, to fix this, you need to develop a personal mission statement or philosophy or creed. It focuses on what you want to be, your character, and to do contributions and achievements, and on the values or principles upon which being and doing are based. So for example, you want to be the best runner in your country, for example. You'd make sure you have a training plan. You'd make sure you have the creed, which is, I want to be the best runner, and then base everything around that. And the book talks more carefully later about planning and emphasis. So at the center, so this is an interesting one. I want to put up a video, if I can, edit it, about Kevin Leroney, one of the greatest bodybuilders, and he talks about at the center. So whatever is at the center of our lives will be the source of our security, guidance, wisdom, and power. These 4 factors, security, guidance, wisdom, and power, are interdependent. Security and clear guidance brings true wisdom, and wisdom becomes the spark or catalyst to release and direct power. When these 4 factors are present, together, harmonized, and alive by each other, they create the great force of a noble personality, a balanced character, a beautifully integrated individual. The power of independent will. In addition to self-awareness, imagination, and conscience, is the 4th human endowment, independent will, that really makes effective self-management possible. The degree to which we have developed our independence will in our everyday lives is measured by our personal integrity. Integrity is, fundamentally, the value we place on ourselves. It's our ability to make and keep commitments to ourselves, to walk our talk. In honor with self, a fundamental part of the character ethic, the essence of proactive growth. So, getting a bit deep here, but I notice a lot of people in society these days, they've kind of fallen off track. They feel like they don't have any purpose and they're incredibly depressed. And when I read stuff like this, it always brings me back to my own ideology, which I believe everyone should develop some sort of creed, some sort of reason for living. Because when you do that, it makes life incredibly exciting, incredibly intriguing. So right now, I've started my own business pursuit. That's why I make videos like this. That's why I share information on the internet with people like you. That's why you clicked on my video, because you thought it might look interesting. And it is interesting. And it makes me happy. It makes me happy because I took time out of my day to create this. And you also took time out of your day to watch it. And we both learned something. So, yeah, just on a side note, I think people should start developing creeds and philosophies and stick to it, because you can find a lot in your life when you start doing stuff like that. So, time management. I'm pretty bad at time management, I should specify that. The essence of the best thinking in the area of time management can be captured in a single phrase. Organize and execute around priorities. This is incredibly important, because let's say, for example, you want to be the best runner in your country. A new movie comes out. You know, your partner or your friend or whatever, oh, do you want to go see this movie? Maybe you might think, oh yeah, of course I want to go see that movie. But then you look at your timetable, oh no, do you know what, I have a training run. I have a training run on at that time, and I can't go see it. And that takes commitment. That takes balls, quite honestly. You have to stick to the plan and Only that way can you go up. When you start pushing things aside, it's like, no, I don't really want to do that. You know, a lot of people, you probably deal with it. I've dealt with it in the past. I still deal with it this day. Procrastination. It's a big killer of dreams when we just push things off to the side and we don't plan around. We don't organize and execute around our priorities. That's the only way up. Start doing that. So we accomplish all that we do through delegation, either to time or to other people. If we delegate to time, we think efficiency. If we delegate to other people, we think effectiveness. And that's very interesting, because when you deal with other people, you might not always think efficiency, because when you delegate your own time, you're trying to save your own time. You may not be trying to save someone else's time. So when you're dealing in a group and you have multiple people and maybe you only have a limited amount of time, you're thinking effectiveness. I never thought of it that way, but it's quite an intriguing philosophy. So, trust is the highest form of human motivation. That is so true. If I didn't trust that this would reach people, if I didn't trust that this would have value, if I didn't trust that this had any meaning, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't sit here. I'd go play a fucking video game or something. Something to stimulate my mind. Even if it's incorrectly stimulated. My mind doesn't know that. My mind thinks, oh, this is great. Dopamine fire. Doesn't know, doesn't care. Right? It's oblivious to the fact of what's actually happening in the real world. So trust is the highest form of human motivation. Anything I've achieved in my own personal life, I've trusted it would work. And even if it didn't work, and I trusted it would work, I still learned a lot along the way. And that also counts as a learning lesson to me. So, again, every point in this book I'm finding incredibly fascinating. So the paradigms of interdependence. And it talks about an emotional bank account. I thought this was fascinating. So let me suggest 6 major deposits that build the emotional bank account. Number 1, understanding the individual. So really seeking to understand another person is probably one of the most important deposits you can make, and it is the key to every other deposit. Attending to the little things. The little kindnesses and courtesies are so important. This just goes for a relationship, goes for a workplace, goes for everything, school life. Small discourtesies, little unkindnesses, little forms of disrespect make large withdrawals. I love this thinking of it being an emotional bank account. In relationships, the little things are the big things. Now, of course, big things are big things too, right? You want to take your girl out to Paris, want to splash that moolah. Yeah, she's gonna love it. Bro, make her a cup of tea sometimes, Little things can also be big things. Keeping commitments. This is a personal creed of mine that I always try to do. If I say something, I do it. I'm not a sayer, I'm a doer. I keep my commitments because my word is bond. And 99% of the time, I do it. Keeping a commitment or a promise is a major deposit. Breaking one is a major withdrawal. People tend to build their hopes around promises, particularly promises about their basic livelihood. Clarifying expectations. The cause of almost all relationship difficulties is rooted in conflicting or ambiguous expectations around roles and goals. We create many negative situations by simply assuming that our expectations are self-evident and that they're clearly understood and shared by other people. This is also quite interesting. So I'm in a university course, right, for sound engineering. And one of our lecturers has a saying, I don't know if he created this or someone else did, but he said, never assume, because assuming makes an ass out of you and me. And that's always stuck with me. So never assume. I'm in a relationship. If I ever have a problem in the relationship, which I don't, but let's say I did, then I'd sit the person down and I'd say, listen, we're grown adults. This is what I think. What do you think? And then discuss it, but don't argue about it. Just discuss it back and forth. And then you reach a middle ground. And then you have a solid philosophy for your relationship, which is built around, which is obviously the key here. Showing personal integrity. Personal integrity generates trust and is the basis of many different kinds of deposits. Integrity includes, but goes beyond, honesty. Apologizing sincerely, also very important. When we make withdrawals from the emotional bank account, we need to apologize and need to do it sincerely. So, if you ever fuck up, don't try to go back on your word. Don't try to say, oh, I didn't know that would happen. Or, oh, I didn't mean to do it. You know, it's very, I don't know why, but for humans, it's very much second nature to go, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't know it would go that way. We don't take the responsibility onto ourselves. We don't say, listen, I'm actually really sorry I did that. Like, that was not cool. That's my fault. You need to take ownership, you know. Interpersonal relationships. Win-win is not a technique. It's a total philosophy of human interaction. In fact, it is one of the 6 paradigms of interaction. The alternative paradigms are win-lose, lose-win, lose-lose, win, and win-win or no deal. Win-win sees life as a cooperative, not a competitive arena. Most people tend to think in terms of dichotomies: strong or weak, hardball or softball, win or lose. But that kind of thinking is fundamentally flawed. It's based on power and position rather than on principle. Win-win is based on the paradigm that there is plenty for everybody, and no one person's success is not achieved at the expense or exclusion of the success of others. Very interesting point. Can we all be successful? I think so. In fact, I believe it's almost nature. I believe if you try hard at something, you can do it no matter what the cost. And it's a funny thing, as human beings, we seem not to believe in this philosophy. Even though time and time again, we see people who have achieved massive things like Eminem, Kobe Bryant, just to name a couple, or Kanye West, who, maybe some of them are, naturally gifted or whatever, but they came from very poor areas. They came from having nothing. And again, I even tried to cope there and say naturally gifted. But then again, how naturally gifted are you if you've spent thousands of hours on something? I'm sure there's probably even studies out there to disprove that there's any such an idea even as naturally gifted. Again, very interesting. So, dimensions of win-win. You basically get what you reward. If you want to achieve the goals or reflect the values in your mission statement, so your creed of your philosophy, then you need to align the reward system with these goals and values. Very, very important. I love this book because I want to achieve things in business. But if I'm playing video games all the time and that's my reward system, then I'm not actually going to achieve in business. I'm going to achieve in the video games instead, which doesn't really make much sense. So, if you're trying to achieve something, rewire your brain to start attacking that one thing. If it's an exam, then you have to make sure that you try your hardest. Empathic communication. So if I were to summarize in one sentence, single most important principle, and this is from his point of view, that I have learned in the field of interpersonal relationships, it would be this: seek first to understand, then to be understood. Very intriguing, because I'm quite I'm not sure if I'd say a loud-spoken person, but I like to have my opinion. I like to have my voice heard, and I like to voice my said opinion. So, probably not all the time do I wait for someone to speak first. I'll speak first, and if they try to speak over me, not always will I speak louder, but I want to almost tell them that no, they are wrong, my opinion is correct, and I'm not going to hear you. So obviously I need to work on that myself. And this is basically stating that You need to understand them first and then wait for them to understand you, which could be contradictory if we line 10 people up and try and make them do that at the same time. But regardless, the basis is still there. Synergy. Synergy is the essence of principle-centered leadership. It is the essence of principle-centered parenting. It catalyzes, unifies, and unleashes the greatest powers within people. What is synergy? Simply defined, it means the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Incredible information in this book. I mean, if you have a team, how powerful is one person from that team versus the entirety of the team? So one person on their own, not very strong. Two people, again, not very strong. Individually, they're not really strong at all. But you put them as a team, they're even greater than the individual's powers added up. Crazy thought, but I'd never even considered something like that. But when you think about it, it does make sense. So the essence of synergy is to value differences, to respect them, to build on strengths, to compensate for weaknesses. So realize that all people see the world not as it is, but as they are. Of course, this is formed through, maybe you've been programmed, pre-programmed, matrix, get a job, get a 9 to 5, make sure you do that, nothing else, etc., etc. Programmed by society, by your parents, by your teachers, been told what to do, what to say, what to think, by your TV set, by your phone, by the radio wave in the sky, all of these things. And it's basically saying that people see the world not as the world actually exists, but as what they think the world actually exists. And I think this is what separates effective or successful people, is they realize that no matter how they see the world, it's not actually how it is. It's different. They can change the world by changing how they think about the world. It's a very interesting point of view. I believed in that philosophy 10 years ago when I first realized that, hold on, you can actually make a difference by just thinking about it. It's crazy. The person who is truly effective has the humility and reverence to recognize his own perceptual limitations and to appreciate the rich resources available for interaction with the hearts and minds of other human beings. I recognize as an individual, I'm not that strong. I'm not talking about physically. I'm not talking about mentally. I'm actually genuinely talking about spiritually, right? And you'll start to understand this as you start to grow in business and interpersonal relationships. But I want to grow from people, not to leech off them, but to learn from them, to build connections, to build friendships, and to become stronger and better and smarter and faster. And maybe that's just the masculine way to achieve and to strive. But I believe anyone, when you surround yourself with the right people, you grow and you become better. You become better and they become better just from interacting with each other. You might not even think of it as learning, but think of your friendships. Think of your really good friendships that have actually benefited you. You might have just prioritized the friendship and not prioritized learning about anything, but you actually learned in the end. So, again, an interesting concept. So, continual growth. So, this is the last section. So, balance and renewal. The self-renewal process must include balanced renewal in all 4 dimensions of our nature: the physical, the spiritual, the mental, and the social/emotional. And I'm going to put up some pictures that are included in this book. So, the physical dimension. The physical dimension involves caring effectively for our physical body. My gym rat's going to love this. Eating the right kinds of food, getting sufficient rest and relaxation, and exercising on a regular basis. The spiritual dimension. Spiritual dimension is your core, your center, your commitment to the value system. the mental dimension. Education, continuing education, continually honing and expanding the mind is vital mental renewal. I 100% believe in this. Even if you don't trust the education system, or you're not going to be in it, or you don't want to be in it, or you're being excluded, whatever, etc., etc., you should always try to learn from people younger than you, learn from people older than you, learn from people smarter than you. Maybe not learn from people dumber than you, but just all walks of life. Try to expand your mind and learn as many languages as possible, no matter how hard it is. You know, that's what I want to do, right? I want to learn languages. I want to make a lot of money. I want to do all these things, and I want to continually learn. You know, I don't want to stop until I'm dead, because there's just so much resources and so much vast amount of information out there that is ready to be absorbed. And you might think, oh, well, we have Google. What point is Google? Everyone can Google. Everyone can go type up something. It's precious. It is special when you have that knowledge up here and in here. So, the social/emotional dimension. The social and the emotional dimensions of our lives are tied together because our emotional life is primarily, but not exclusively, developed out of and manifested in our relationships with others. So, intrinsic security. So, where does intrinsic security come from? It doesn't come from what other people think of us or how they treat us. It doesn't come from the scripts they've handed us. It doesn't come from our circumstances or our position. Very important. If you're ever in a low point in life, man, you can always crawl out of it. You know, your situation does not define you. Probably heard that a million times, but it's the most truest shit you'll ever hear. It comes from within. It comes from accurate paradigms and correct principles deep in our own mind and heart. It comes from inside out congruence. It comes from living a life of integrity in which our daily habits reflects our deepest values. The upward spiral. Renewal is the principle and the process that empowers us to move on an upward spiral of growth and change of continuous improvement. Conscience is the endowment that senses a congruence or disparity with correct principles and lifts us towards them when it's in shape. Inside out again. Change, real change, comes from the inside. Doesn't come from hacking at the leaves of attitude and behavior with the quick fix personalities, ethic techniques. Now this is interesting because I've realized this in life. Nothing comes fast. You know, David Goggins quoted this. He said, you have to find yourself in the reps. You have to do thousands of reps. You know, people talk about 10,000 hours to master something. Maybe not 10,000, but definitely a few. You know, definitely a few thousand to truly master something. So it takes a long time. There's no quick easy fix for your personality or for making money. Works the same. It comes from striking at the root, the fabric of our thought, fundamental, essential paradigms which give definition to our character and create the lens through which we see the world. And finishes off with a quote from Emerson. That which we persist in doing becomes easier. Not that the nature of the task has changed, but our ability to do has increased. By centering our lives on correct principles and creating a balanced focus between doing and increasing our ability to do so, we become empowered in the task of creating effective, useful, and peaceful lives for ourselves and for our prosperity. Really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm James O'Driscoll, signing out.